That is not a surgical strike, but that is an outright declaration of war against Iran. The military reason is that they simply had the opportunity to do so. Iran has been weakened constantly, mainly through Israeli military action in the region with attacks on Iranian targets, but also on Iran's proxies, Iran's partners, allied militias in the region. But there is a political level to this, which I think is much more important. For Prime Minister Netanyahu, the situation in the Middle East is at the moment not going well for him because there's a lot of public attention on his pointless, brutal war in Gaza. The criticism on Netanyahu has increased also in the Western camp. And for Netanyahu, he can be sure that the moment he escalates a war with Iran, a critical mass of Western allies that were about to distance himself from his policies will be with him and will be also forced to somehow unequivocally take sides. And that is a political game. Then you have the domestic policy, of course, where Netanyahu's approval rates are plummeting. And for Netanyahu, this is a moment. A war is like an instrument of choice in order to protect his political assets. We've seen that from Washington for like every time when such a situation emerges, they might be distancing themselves and may be critical, but in the end support the Israeli side in this. And when you hear Marco Rubio said like Iran should not retaliate, of course he talks about US assets and US interests in the region. Let's keep in mind that the Americans have evacuated non-essential staff from various of their embassies in the Gulf region. But he also implies that Iran should not retaliate against Israel because in the case when it comes down to the critical moment, then America would probably side with Israel. Well, we've seen how Iran has responded in the past in a very limited fashion. Now we have a different situation because they have not only attacked apparently military sites, but they have targeted leadership of the Iranian armed forces, the IRGC. So Iran would have to respond in a much wider and much stronger fashion. However, it's going to be difficult for them because we have seen that the military capabilities are limited because Iran doesn't have an air force. It relies on drones and missiles technology in which they are advanced, but of course they're limited. So they are used to recur to their militias and proxy partners in the region, the so-called axis of resistance in some sort of a forward defense. But the Iranians don't have that capability anymore, for the exception of the Houthis probably in Yemen. And Israel is making use of that weakness before Iran builds up its capabilities again.